Hi, I'm Josh Cybrowski. I work for Global Mana. So we're going to talk about breadfruit. Food staple throughout all of the Pacific Islands. Originally comes from Papua New Guinea and cultivated in a lot of different areas. There's a whole lot of different variants of it, but they're all mostly the same. It can actually be pretty delicious depending on how it's cooked. You put it with some coconut milk and it has a really good, nice taste to it. You let it mature and it winds up tasting almost sweet. You can eat it early on. It tastes almost like artichoke back at that point in time. So very interesting, very versatile. A lot of interesting properties we're finding all throughout it. In terms of how it helps out people, it helps people in a variety of ways. First of all, there are some very important health benefits, particularly for island people. Who seem to be more susceptible to diabetes and some other, kind of Western-style diseases. Breadfruit is a great alternative to some of the Western foods and makes people healthier. In addition to that, if you live on an island, occasionally they get hit by tropical storms and by other natural disasters. It's nice to have a very stable food supply within that island. Last but not least, there's a huge economic advantage to people who are starting to grow breadfruit. Traditionally, the difficulty with breadfruit is the trees are pretty big. They have a massive amount of fruit. All the fruit ripens at the same time, and you really have like a day or two, maximum of 3, to utilize and use all of that fruit. So you just got bombarded with tons and tons of fruit, and people don't have any way of actually utilizing all of it. So it's almost been like a nuisance plant in the islands. You just have tons and tons of it. Maybe you'll go ahead and use a couple of the fruits, but the tree's going to have they'll do about 450 pounds of fruit a year. And so there's no way any single family is going to use all of that, and they can't stabilize it. And that's where we're kind of a game changer as Global Mana. We're coming in and building these dehydrators and building systems that can pull the water out of it and stop it from having that issue that traditionally they're having with breadfruit. Once we take the water out of it, it stabilizes, and once it's stable, they can keep it for a local food source, or they can sell it to us for the world market. One of my attractions to breadfruit flour is my wife and oldest daughter are actually gluten-free. They've got an allergy. And I saw years ago when they discovered this allergy, their health improved on the one hand, but our big KitchenAid mixer, it kind of went away. I never used that. And she was always the one baking stuff. And at first I, kind of probably did what every husband of a gluten-intolerant woman would do and say, this isn't going to beat us. We're going to find a way around this. There's all these gluten-free flours. So you start ordering the gluten-free flours and you start cooking with them. And cooking gluten-free chocolate chip cookies, it's like mixing sand in with cookie dough. It just comes out really like coarse and weird. It doesn't gel together. So that's been kind of one of the other problems. You're very limited in what you can cook. You're limited in what the different flours are. For example, if a recipe calls for wheat flour, the gluten-free version, it's a different quantity of like rice flour and xanthium gum or some other stabilizer and some other source of flour. So it gets very confusing and very difficult. What we found with breadfruit flour is it's just a 1-to-1 conversion. My wife cooks her same old cookie recipe now. We use 1 cup of breadfruit flour where it used to be 1 cup of all-purpose flour. And mixing it together is great. It cooks like regular cookies. It tastes like regular cookies. Anyone who's on a gluten-free diet winds up being a game changer for them. So the benefits that come to the South Pacific people through breadfruit, we're seeing 3 main benefits right now. First of all, there's a health benefit. It's healthier eating than the foods that they're having imported from other countries. Second of all, it's kind of an emergency food supply benefit. If they're growing their own emergency food, if some storm or something hits and they're cut off from food supplies, which is a fairly regular part of living on an island, they actually now have this other food source that they'll be growing. So it winds up helping them in terms of health. It's a kind of cultural health staple. It winds up helping them as well economically. We're not seeing a whole lot of variety from one species to another. There are about 45 different species of breadfruit, and all of them basically have about the same nutrient load and pretty much the same quantities. It's close enough that our food labeling is likely just going to be one label year-round, even though throughout the course of the year we'll actually be getting it from different countries and different plant varieties. But everything winds up being very close. With breadfruit flour, we're seeing two very notable health benefits that we have in terms of nutrition. First of all, it doesn't seem like it's kind of the magic pill and that it's going to cure everything with all these massive amounts of nutrients. And I don't know that I'm comfortable calling it the next superfood, but we're seeing two super qualities from it. First of all, glycemic index is something that everyone should be monitoring, seeing how quickly their foods turn into sugars. There's a whole lot of sugar out there in the markets right now. You go and buy some fast food, some of the popular chains, they have sugar in their fries, they have sugar in their beef, they have sugar everywhere. You eat the food and you have this huge energy high, boom, then you feel hungry right after you eat it because you've burned all the energy faster than your body actually should be burning off energy. What we get from breadfruit is quite the opposite. You eat it and it's got a very, very long life before it actually turns to sugars. So that means it slowly gives you energy over a prolonged period of time. That gives you more energy that your body can use appropriately, and it also keeps down cravings for new food because you're not hungry since your body's being fed by this energy. So on the glycemic index, it is a huge, huge home run. Not just for people with diabetes or people prone to diabetes, really anyone can enjoy that benefit. The other massive benefit we see is in a smaller, more narrow category. That's people who choose gluten-free foods. Now, currently that's 10% of the U.S. market, so it's actually a pretty good group. Some of them are doing it by choice. A lot of them are doing it because of allergies or some other reasons attached to that. If you look at the nutrients that we're finding in breadfruit flour, it's not that different than most other food items out there on the market. But when you do a direct comparison to the gluten-free food, whereas the gluten-free flours drop down, the breadfruit flour still stays at a good stable amount of nutrients. So it's far more nutritious than the typical gluten-free flours available on the market. It tastes a whole lot better and is a whole lot easier to process as well. What Global Mana is doing is a lot of these people have heard about breadfruit for a long time. It's kind of a natural resource that's unutilized. We're providing machinery that's changing how they can utilize it. And we've been met with a whole lot of gratitude and excitement from a lot of people. We were greeted so well in Samoa, so well in Fiji, and we have such warm kind invitations to all these other countries that want to work with us.